Happy day that ends in Y. Obviously, I know it's Sunday, but they all kind of run together at this point. OMG. This is Coach MK. I'm Mary Catherine Brooks Fleming. I'm the founder of the Fitness Protection Program, and this is our weekly segment known as Ask Away. The one chance, not the only chance, but I try to make myself as accessible as possible without losing my mind, because I have to be accessible to a whole bunch of people. And if this program is really going to grow, I can't be the failure point. So every room, it's Fitness Protection. Each program has its own coach. And then I show up once a week to answer all the big questions or just to speak with people directly. So if you're here and you're watching, feel free to say hi. I do respond. But I'm going to move first through the introduction. Then I'm going to announce the weekly wins. And celebrate all the good things happening for all of our runners in all of our programs, one program at a time, before moving on to answer questions in each program one by one. First, the questions in Rebuild, then the questions in Maintain. And then finally, I have questions about Build. For those of you who have just joined Build, you're by no means behind. As per the email this morning, I will start taking questions from you guys later this week. This weekend is all about getting adjusted and used to the way we do things. Because if I were to send you everything at once, it would be too much for you to read. And I've learned that the hard way. So rather than swamp you with a whole lot of information, I let it trickle in day by day. Hopefully, over the weekend, those of you who got in early would have started to absorb the way things flow. If there are any questions, you can also join the larger Facebook group, one that is mostly alumni. This is not coach led and anyone can post in there. It's called Heart Rate Training. So if you just go facebook.com/groups/heart rate training, that's ours. You'll see the Fitness Protection logo at the top. Those are all our current and former clients. Feel free to ask questions, seek validation, anything you want in there. Like I said, it is not coach led, but if you just need to commiserate about your experience, if you have something that you need to say and it's not really being addressed in the other places, that is a great place to go. That was open by demand. We heard you. We wanted to meet it because we have a lot of people in our programs who know each other but currently don't have a place to congregate and be a little more social. And I thought, well, that seems like a reasonable request. There you go. Request granted. So it's been a heck of a week. I still have a hard time believing that it's May. Things are starting to open up a little bit in Colorado, but the outdoors have always been open. Hopefully we don't, wherever you are not on a France-style lockdown, which to my understanding has not yet been lifted, where runners are only allowed to run after 7 p.m. and then before 10 p.m. the next morning, which is not terrible, I suppose, but it's not optimal either. I know that I don't like pressure, and pressure to get up and move before 10 a.m. would just make sure it never happened, and I'd be resentful all the time. And also runners in France are not allowed to go more than, I think, 2 kilometers away from their home. And now that I've started playing Pokemon Go with my children, and you have to walk your Pokemon certain distances to get candy, which can then evolve them. And it's a process, but I'll say this, I have become a real, much more accustomed to the metric system than I've ever been any of my years abroad. I'm learning like what 2 kilometers is more clearly than I ever have before, because I have to experience it. It takes anywhere from 2 to 5 to get candy for certain Pokemon. And I'm like, gosh, how long is 2K? I know now. It's like, oh, from here to the coffee shop, around the corner and back, I can map it out. And if that was my run loop, let me tell you, everyone training for 3 days at the fair that thought you were going to lose your mind on your insanity loop that is 1 mile long, let me tell you, 2K is not exactly freedom. If you're living in one of those countries, our heart goes out to you. We hope this all ends relatively soon and we can go back to normal. Complaining about being on a treadmill, complaining about being able to run wherever we want to and having too many options and no way to sort through them, which can feel like pressure on a day when we just don't have the wherewithal to make one more choice. Yay. Hi, Pat. Hello, everyone. All the builders who are now joining us for these live streams. There is never a mandate to be here. You can ask anyone else. Like, what, as far as we're concerned, what you're paying for is the program itself, and then the everything else is optional, and the ability to ask me questions once a week. Everything else is optional, but the options are really good. That daily Facebook live stream, the daily Facebook post. We have people in other areas of the programs who don't use Facebook at all and still find that they get their money's worth every month. So we're quite comfortable with the way things operate. And like I said, there's a lot. And if you try to absorb everything or feel the need to consume 100% of your throwing your money away, that is not going to work for you very long here. If you feel pressure of any sort, I promise you're probably asking the wrong questions, because that's just not how I operate at all. Never hesitate to ask if you're looking at something the wrong way, because it's stressing you out. I'm not the sort of person that thinks stress leads anywhere good. Neither does shame, accountability, or blame. Although blame has to fall sometimes in most of these conversations, at least the ones here. If there's stuff we can do better, let us know. But at the same time, we hope not to reduce anything ever down to a blame game, because no one wins those. So with no further ado, if you saw, our Chief Nutrition Officer, Dahlia Kinsey, was on a live stream earlier today. If you're not in our quarantine Facebook group, I believe she broadcasted in there, but I have been, as you can tell from my lovely sunburn, which hopefully is hidden by this lovely fitness protection shirt. I was out with my children trying to teach them how to ride a bicycle today and forgot my sunscreen and my hat, which was, I thought we were going to be out for a few minutes and ended up being closer to 8 hours. So I'm completely sunburned and out of touch with everything that couldn't be done on my BlackBerry during today. So I apologize for that. If you haven't heard from me, expect to after this broadcast. Thank you, Susan, as usual, is right on top of things, on top of me, keeping me together. Thank you, Susan, for that. Notice in this photo of her that she's wearing this lovely neck gaiter that you can also purchase on our website at fitnessprotection.com. If you go there and click on the merch tab at the top of the screen, it'll take you to our merchandise store, and the neck gaiter should be at the bottom of the page. We also have really cool shirts. And not this one specifically. This one was a test run from a different supplier that we are no longer, that we elected not to go with. They didn't offer us enough sizes, quite frankly. We are able to offer up to a 5X in some of the cuts, not all, and we are pushing them hard to get all the sizes we possibly can and all the cuts and all the colors, and you will never pay a premium on that. All shirts cost the same price. I am adamant about that and always will be. If ever we move to, I will sooner give you a discount code if you needed to buy a larger size if I wasn't allowed to change the pricing myself. But right now I am, and all things cost the same. You will never have to pay a penalty or a tax for being anything outside what someone considered to be normal or usual when making these shirts. Know that if you can't find your size, let us know. We apologize in advance, and we're working really hard to make sure that we can treat everyone equitably at every turn. It's something that we value and consider to be very important in fitness protection. Final note, if there is a person, if you're watching this now and you have a question about build, and one of the questions holding you back is, do you tell me a little bit about what this is going to be in terms of, fitness and weight loss. We will get to that at the end. We don't have that many questions tonight. It's kind of a slower week, but I get that with a lot of parents trying to administer finals and whatnot. I assumed that was out the window with distance learning. Evidently it is not. Wow, that's stressful. Luckily my kids are too small that we're not having to worry about that just yet. So our online distance learning isn't that complicated. It's the normal run-of-the-mill complicated that you get when you have 4 under 8, no twins. But yeah, if you are in the thick of it right now, I feel for you. If your spring race was canceled and you were in the thick of training through the winter, I feel for you. I feel for everyone who's grieving a little bit of something right now. The biggest loss in normalcy, that is real, that is valid. Don't let anyone try to take that away from you. We certainly won't here. At the same time, we hope that you're able to, we hope we've given you the tools to sort of mentally pivot and keep going and show you how integral running actually is, and especially right now. And there's never been a better time to sort of like preach what I practice, and I love it. I haven't run in 3 days and I don't care. I've been on my feet up to 8 hours all 3 days in a row. I would have liked to have gone for a run, but you know what? I will settle for an 8-hour Pokemon walk when there's some special event going on that I don't totally understand, but my son is convinced that we are 2 steps away from catching a shiny, what was it? Not Wobuffet. Vienna gnat. It literally is a purple fluffy thing that looks like a gnat, and he kept thinking there'll be a shiny one around the corner. And he walked almost a half marathon. This is a kid who doesn't like going outside. I love Pokemon Go for this reason. Same reason, like back when Harry Potter first came out. I'm from rural Tennessee, and I'll end on this. There were a whole bunch of parents that were up in arms about it. It's teaching children witchcraft, devil's work. I'm from middle of nowhere. And it's real, and it's really religious. It's any like nasty stereotype you can think of, you could probably put on my town, but I'd come at you for it, for other and separate reasons. I will say this: parents were really concerned about what was being taught in Harry Potter. My mother, who's a fourth grade teacher and also specialized in special education and special needs, would always reply the same thing: that the magic is the fact that your child, who is barely literate, just consumed a 350-page book willingly. What more do you really need to know? And that was usually the conversation ender. That is how I feel about Pokemon Go. My child, who does not like going outside, led me outside and kept me there till I was sunburned 3 days in a row. That stuff is magic. Don't knock it till you've tried it. It's actually kind of fun too. If you need a reason to get outside, if you're finding it difficult to get people outside, I tell you, I have a charger, an external pack that I stick to my phone, and because Pokemon Go does run your phone down. And I use it as a tether to for my children to use Wi-Fi with mine, so they can take little tablets out. And we're limited in how far we can go, but when we're outside for 8 hours, we're able to make all the action happen. So I tell you that to tell you this: if you are finding it difficult to get your kids outside, that's a great way to do it. If you don't want your kids coming outside because they'd be ruining your run, that is valid too. Don't tell them about Pokemon Go. It's be the worst thing that ever happened to you. Hi, Robin. I see your question. I'm going to circle back to that a little bit later. We're going to work through the weekly wins first, and then move through the questions from the runners in rebuild and maintain. And then I'm going to get to the questions about build. So here we go. And I'm switching screens now, so I'm not able to see the comments as they come in. I will circle back to them. Go ahead and throw it in there, and I will see them when I move out of the screen where I'm reading all of the weekly wins. So in rebuild, Robin Murphy is back after a breakup with running. She's been working on her strength during her time away and is excited to get back. We missed you, Robin. Welcome home. Sarah Dietz has graduated from Runner Interrupted and is back in rebuild. That's amazing, Dr. Dietz. We are super excited. And if you have not heard the latest podcast, Runner Safety Part 2, Dr. Dietz is one of the voices that you hear. Another is Dr. Andrea, and then finally Dr. Katie. These three doctors, you will recognize you might not know their voices. It's always fun for me. In the webinar this week, I talked about how no one knows what a runner looks like, and then showed a bunch of pictures of me not running, and then a bunch of pictures of other people while they're running. I mean, runners, when we see each other, it is to do one thing: it's run. And it's, we show up looking ready to run and then end up looking nasty, like we really need a shower by the end. So when I see my runners who don't look like they need a shower, I'm always a little bit surprised. Or when I meet a runner of mine in person, since we all know each other virtually, I'm always like, oh, that's what you sound like. It's such a cool thing. I almost can't hear their words because I'm just like, oh, that's what your voice sounds like. And I had a little bit of that going on when I tried to listen to the podcast, but it is worth your time. Runner Safety Part 1 is about running while black, which is to say some people are not safe running in a mask or covering their face in public while moving quickly. And we break that down and let some of our fitness protection coaches and employees tell you why. And then Runner Safety Part 2, we talk about what the how and where of mask wearing outside, and what sorting some of the good advice from the bad. Because I will say that in a time runners tend to be overachievers, we're perfectionists, we like to do the right thing. We pride ourselves, generally speaking, on being good people. So when the public shaming started about people not wearing masks in public and the cries of selfish, what's the right thing? I can tell you not to worry about it. That's not going to be helpful. That's actually kind of invalidating. I can tell you that you're doing the right thing, whatever it is you're choosing to do. And people at this time are just choosing to direct their frustration wherever they can. And runners, when we're not the targets of the bikers around us, who don't belong on the sidewalk anyway, but somehow manage to get there, we're going to be the targets of the bystanders, just because they live on your route. They know they're usually what time of day they can expect to see you and yell at you. And for some people, that's all they got right now. So let them have it. Try not to let it get to you and hear my voice in the back of your head in those moments saying, you're fine. Bless their hearts. Katie Hansen is celebrating her 3-year anniversary of running by heart rate. Yay, Katie! There's another voice that you would have heard on the podcast, Runner Safety Part 2. She's able to see she's able to see all the progress that she has made. Important note, if you are new in the Rebuild program, the reason that Dr. Hansen is able to see the progress she has made is because she is following the instructions that I gave in the email you guys saw this morning to the letter. In that letter, I told you that you needed to make a habit every day after each run, making a note about the run itself. There's no right answers, only honesty in that moment before you look back. And I mean, do it as soon as you're done, before you've had time to sit back and like writing it as though I'm going to read it. So you're trying to make it sound good. Like, actually, it was a very nice run, and the birds were singing and the sky was blue, and I'm glad I got out of bed this morning. That's not helpful. That really isn't helpful. It's the sort of thing when you finish, if you say like, it was fine, that's good information. What does it tell me? That nothing bad happened. It tells me that it wasn't a disaster. It tells me that nothing hurt. If you say, and sometimes, I mean, most of the time, no news is terrific news. Not every run is going to be amazing with birds singing and like the skies parting and the sun right on your face and it's perfect and not burning you like my chest right now. But that's it. That was never going to happen. What we need are more days that just don't totally suck. And so when we look back, memory is a funny thing. Like if you talk about pretty much anything, like how you felt in that moment or how others interpreted your feelings in that moment versus how you feel about it now that time has passed are going to be very different. Objects in the rearview mirror may appear closer than they are, but your feelings will be further away. The people around you might be somewhat of a better record of the memory keeping, which is why you need to be able to take those notes. It's really helpful. That way you can also search it in Training Peaks and see, oh, when did my Achilles start hurting? Well, the first time I mentioned Achilles in my training logs was 4.5 weeks ago. There you go. That's helpful. It's not perfect, but it's helpful. And anything that you think is worth noting, but do it before, like, not performatively, because no one's ever going to read this other than you. And I get that it takes some time to get used to that because we're all used to doing right and giving the right answer and trying to get an A. But this is really just a record so that 3 years from now, when you're looking back and saying, is it worth it? You can actually see, oh man, I made all kinds of progress because we are so focused and we have been so conditioned to focus on the goal, whatever that endpoint we think is when we get started. And we're measuring the distance between here and there, and we're not looking back to see how much we've actually done. And that is what I'll be encouraging you to do at every single turn. Don't discount your badassery. Don't discount the effort. Don't discount the time that you've already put in just because you're not wherever you wanted to be or thought you would be yet. Chances are the idea of that timeline that you set doesn't mean that you suck, but it might mean that, like, that was wrong. So do you want to be right or do you want to be better? What are we going to be disappointed about? I choose to be disappointed about very little. And in those moments when I start to get sucked down that rabbit hole, I look back at all I've done and I'm like, hell yeah. And that is what Dr. Hansen is doing. And that is why she's able to do it. Those of you in Build who are having this opportunity to start fresh, great. There you go. Everyone else who's like, oh, maybe I should do that. Yeah, please do that. It's never too late to start. Amy Rhino is getting back in the running habit after quarantine life grabbed her by the face. I feel that. We have 2 Amy's in this group. One of them has 10 children. And if this is the Amy with 10 children, then I can completely understand your Saturday would get to me much. I mean, I think I got a big family. Yours is bigger. I'm not sure. I think that might be Amy Lucas, though. So Amy Rhino, like, you don't need 10 children for this stuff to be getting you in the face. I feel it. It is real. It is complicated. It is challenging. And sometimes there's just no relief in sight or help to be found or any way that we could possibly balance our existence and get everything done that others expect us to do or that we expect from ourselves. More often than not, the things, the expectations on our plate are unrealistic to begin with, but that's because either we don't know what to ask for and the people around us don't either. There you go. So congratulations on getting back into a habit of self-care. And that's really what I encourage running to be for everyone all the time. I've been saying it for years, long before the pandemic hit, but especially so now. You need to have a little time to yourself. And the only time I'm ever alone, and I only have 4, is when I'm on the run. Because every time I sit down, even when I'm sitting on the potty, there is someone with a book in hand asking to sit in my lap and asking for a story. It doesn't end. And Rich has been doing a great job of listening to her body and doing the level of work that her body and spirit can handle. She has also mastered manicures, and the pictures of her nails are worth following on Instagram because My nails is pitiful, y'all. And hers look really good. Congratulations on all fronts. And you are, in fact, winning at life. In Maintain, Alicia just finished her first week of 5 days of running since February. Whoop, whoop. We also hope that things have settled down in your household and that your kids are doing okay. We know you had a really rough last few weeks. We are here for you, and you are absolutely in our thoughts. And congratulations on being able to find a little time for yourself 5 days in a row. That's huge. Ms. Viola celebrated her 2-year running anniversary, and we could not be more excited. Thank you for being here. We absolutely love you, Ms. Viola. Emily Sorensen ran her longest run since November today. She also has had an awesome week, ran 5 times and did all her strength. Whoop, whoop. I'm telling you, that is the big deal. Finding time, creating time, making time, taking time for yourself 5 days in a row is huge. And if you're listening to this right now as one of the new build runners saying, I'm running 5 days in a row, cool. Guess what? If you're brand new to this program and you've never put on a heart rate monitor before, you have no idea how little you will actually be running in the beginning, and that's okay too. Go watch the video where Coach Levy talks through her first 140 run. It is up on YouTube publicly and in your Facebook group privately. Nicole, she had a great long run, her longest without taking a walk break in over a year. That's amazing. I remember how that feels. That was me just last year after recovering after my 4th. The first time I was able to run unencumbered and felt like I could have, maybe not like I could run forever, but I'm like, oh, I've been going for a while and I feel good. That was a big deal. This is a big deal. I am excited for you. Nikia earned her TRX certification on Friday, and she is getting a TRX installed in her house. You know how I say, like, you probably don't need to seek out ways to make your life harder? Nikia does. She seeks out ways to make her life harder and herself stronger, and that's one of the reasons why we love her, and she is the leader of the build community. Just don't ask me to do TRX because that is not going to happen. But if you guys are interested in her offering it, let us know. If she's interested in teaching it, we can work something out. Whew, that's just a lot. Also, if you've got room to put that in your house and you think you could use it without anybody running underneath you, clearly, I need your life. What is your life? Tell me about your life. I don't know what that life is like. Trisha was struggling with the emotional demands of her work and was able to ask a colleague for some help, and they stepped in to share the load. That is amazing and magical, and I love hearing stories like that right now because that's the sort of thing I might still be in the more traditional type of working world if I had that more often, but the jobs that I was in attracted what do they call them, insecure overachievers, and kind of thrived on people not asking for help and not saying anything ever. So being the person that's like, hey, guess what, this isn't working, I need some help, hey, guess what, this is never going to happen, that never won me favors. So I learned really quickly not to do it, and if something couldn't be done, I just didn't do it. I'm always excited when I hear that a person is in a healthy workplace where they can ask for help and they get it. It shouldn't be that hard, but for a lot of people, for a lot of demographics and a lot of work cultures, it actually is. That's huge, especially in a time of stress. I am so glad you have that, Trisha. I really, truly am. Now we're moving on to the question portion of Ask Coach. Change this little banner right here. Yay, we've gone from weekly wins to the questions in rebuild. I'm recovering from a hamstring injury back in the beginning of Feb. I've been increasing my running interval times, working on inclines on the treadmill and on the trails without pain. How do we know when it's okay to restart short bursts of speed, like in the dog run for Monday? Dog run is the name of the workout. And it's from one of my favorite songs by the Scissor Sisters. So we don't mess with hamstrings. Hamstrings, I say this a lot. There are a lot of my catchphrases. This is one of them. We don't mess with hamstrings. When they speak, we listen. When they say hi, we stop what we're doing and back right off. Reason being, hamstrings are supporting players. They are 3 little muscles that work well together. They are supporting players. They aren't meant to do very much. So when they're talking to you, that is a pretty good sign that there's a bigger systemic breakdown going on, because they shouldn't be talking to you for any reason. Back off a little bit. So if you're recovering from a hamstring injury, it's not the time. The things that we don't want to test are how well your hamstrings are going to hold up. I would say just be gentle. Go hard, but not full out. Don't go as hard as you would like. So I would say, if I had to put it on percentages, and I know, don't worry about mathematical accuracy here. I can do a numbers math data throwdown with anyone. I choose not to because it's really stupid. That's a pretty good sign that you're not thinking about the right things when you sit down with a math nerd and want to math it out. You might be missing the point. So I tell you that to tell you this. Ratchet it back. Start at 50%. of whatever's required there. I don't have the workout in front of me at the moment. Otherwise I'd look it up, but you guys are watching it. I don't want to bore you. So if I say like it's a wind sprint, then you know what? 10K pace is good. Try to hit 10K pace, 10K effort, which for the uninitiated, that is 2 minutes per mile faster than your 140 pace. Don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. We will get to all that later. Okay. So for that, I would just say start at 50% of whatever's required and try to do that. If you feel like hamstrings speaking at all, guess what? You're not ready. Back off wait a couple days and then try it again. See if maybe your system was just a little bit shocked that you asked it to do something. If you hear it again, stop what you're doing and definitely call your physical therapist, because sometimes these things don't heal on their own, or the imbalance or the inefficiency that would have led to the injury in the first place might still be present. If that is the case, then we definitely need to we need to take a little bit stronger measures to make sure that we can get back into a good place. You can jog forever just fine, but if you're jogging because you are scared to, or because you don't think you can go harder, that's something different. That's something we would like to try to address and work out. So that is how I would start at 50%, and let's say it works. If that feels good, don't do more than 50% in the first day. I think of it as getting greedy, and I am very conservative there. Don't get greedy. 50% in the first week. Second week, try a little bit more than that, but not all the way to what's written, and then gradually ease back into that over the course of the month. That is exactly how I would approach it. But even the short bursts of speed, those are going to get you much more than the medium intensity. I'm wanting to switch from my regular running shoes, which is the Brooks Glycerin, to a zero drop option. Before I go any further, the question I would have is why. Those have been hailed as better for ever since that book Born to Run came out, and people kind of jumped on the numbers and didn't read the words. And that happened to business school too, y'all, and it happened in the investment banks. When you have people that think of themselves as numbers people, they think the words and the qualifying stuff is less important than the quantitative. But I'm just got to remind everyone listening that is not the case. If you're focusing on the numbers and you're missing the why and the rationale and the reasoning, then what you're doing is not a true analysis. So if you want to switch to a zero drop option, the first question is why is that? Let's make sure that that's what you want to get. If you're happy in the Brooks Glycerin, is there a reason that you're changing it? If I say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. What is it you're trying to achieve, or what is it you're trying to get to with the zero drop shoe? A lot of people will tell you that they're better. I'm like, so I walk in zero drop shoes. I walk in Vibrams, but that's because I want the foot strength, and I want my toes to be literally, I wiggle my toes a lot, and I want each of them to be able to move independently. So that is why I like walking around in zero drop shoes, but I don't run in them. As a matter of fact, I don't know what the drop is in any of my shoes. So I care about it that little. So if you're making a switch, I would be like, first, let's ask why we want to make that switch. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I just want to be really clear that whenever we induce anything, the very first question we have to ask ourselves is, what do I need to get? Because there are trade-offs, right? And if you are comfortable and happy in something, then the grass is always greener. We just want to make sure we're not going down that rat hole. So most of my everyday shoes are zero drop, and they feel much better on my feet. That's not a terrible reason. I'll take it. What do I need to be cognizant of to lessen the likelihood of injury when making the change? How long should I take and try to transition? I would say go slowly. Now, so think about and really try to articulate it as much as you can. Write it down. Take the notes. What is it about the zero drop shoe that you walk around in that feels better? The thing and also how much of a drop is in the Brooks Glycerin. The standard tends to be anywhere from 8 millimeter to 13 millimeter. I don't know off the top of my head, the Brooks Glycerin specifically, but stability shoes tend to have more drop as a general rule. To that end, when you're taking that away, that's going to be more, work for all the little muscles around your hamstrings and your heel cords, is how I just refer to that group on the whole. So that's going to be more strain on your heel cords, and you need to be really cognizant of that. We need to really take care that we are massaging them every day, that you're following my foam rolling prescription, my foam rolling script fastidiously, and that you are taking a lot of time working out that area. It's going to be super uncomfortable, and that's intentional. You need to spend a lot of time trying to isolate the soleus and work that out too. That is intentional. If you're watching this and you're new to build, you will get the script later. That's one of the things that we sort of introduce slowly over the next few days, and why I say if you try to get everything at once, you're going to be overwhelmed. Don't worry about it yet. We will get to that later. So it's going to be mostly the way the attachment point for your Achilles and the heel cords into the heel itself. Understand it's going to be uncomfortable because when it's not just the longer extension with every footfall that we're going to be adding in, but also the pounding plus the extension. So that's two big changes that are going to be happening at the same time. So I would just maybe running them for a few minutes, do the warm-up drills and then do your warm-up in the shoe, the new shoe, the zero drop shoe, and then immediately go back into the other shoe. If that's not possible, then find some way to work it in. I think it's much, much better to do a little bit each day. This is one of the few times you'll ever hear me say this. It's much better to do a very little bit each day, starting with 5 to 10 minutes and then kind of ramping it up from there, then picking one day and doing it for an hour and then trying to add a whole nother hour later. That's not how adaptations work when it comes to the human body. It's one of the reasons why I say if you're running for performance, you really need to be here doing this 5 days a week, because the critical adaptations in your tendons, joints, and ligaments start disappearing the second you take your shoes off, which is, again, is not to be more pressure, but rather to understand this is why we can't, very few humans can run 3 days a week and do just fine. And especially if you're new to the sport, the odds are just not in your favor. That's going to be the case. So I tell you all that to tell you this. When I say start slow, a little bit every day is where I would start, and ramping it up very slowly. No more than 10 minutes. So if we start at 5 minutes, for 5 runs in week 1, make it 10 minutes in week 2, 15 minutes in week 3, et cetera, et cetera. And that's generally pretty good. And the lie that, and this is the final note, the lie runners try to tell ourselves is that hurt. It'll feel better next week when I get stronger. And I'm like, no, that works when the stimulus is staying the same or when the stimulus is decreasing. Effectively, if we're trying to make a permanent shift, the stimulus is going to be increasing, right? So you're better off backing off immediately than telling yourself it'll feel better next time. Just be really, really careful there. So now those are all of the questions that we have in Rebuild. We're now moving over to the questions in Maintain. And then I'm going to circle back to the comments, which I'm not able to see at the moment, but I will be responding to all the comments and taking questions from the audience or follow-up questions as we go. There's only one question here in Maintain. I am on the dedicated AF 10-week marathon ramp. For new people that aren't quite sure what's going on, we give our marathon plans away for free. And if you are in Maintain, we ask minimum to optimally 3 months before entering the ramp. But we develop and maintain such a high base that we're able to do half marathons at the drop of a hat. We have a lot of people, the 50 staters, that want to do a half marathon in every state. Some want to do a half marathon every month. I actually have one person that wants to do a half marathon every week. She is very low key about it, but that's her life. And that's okay. I'm here to support all of the things, but I can't support you if I don't know what your thing is. Maintain right now hits all of those buttons, and the 3, I think of them as flavors of marathon plan that we offer. We have Tenacious AF, and that's for people running their very first race, their very first marathon, or for any people who have no reasonable expectation of finishing sooner than 6 hours. And I give very explicit instructions on what that is. So it's not a punishment to be there. It's just, why work harder than you have to? That is my answer every single time. For what? For what? That sounds really hard. Why? So we tend to think that I really, really want this thing, so I'm willing to work harder. And that's generally with the human body, not how it works. So I'm always going to be there being like, okay, why? And so that's why I have 3 flavors of the marathon plan, because most people would opt for the hardest plan every single time. And that's just completely inefficient, both for them and for me. The middle of the road plan is the dedicated AF, and that it integrates seamlessly with the Maintain program. You'll be doing the same workouts as everyone in Maintain, except for gradually increasing long runs over time. And that's for anyone who is reasonably can expect to go faster than 6 hours, but has no reason to think they could break 4 hours for a marathon. Tends to be unless you're fairly experienced or have a lot of experience running cross country and track and field. That tends to be a mark a lot of people strive for a very long time, because it's not just a function of fitness. It's also a function of understanding the distance and how that distance what that distance does to the human body over time and in different conditions. So the third, but anyone who's willing to be here and stick it out and do it anyway is dedicated AF, and that's hence the name. And then finally, we have steady AF, because that's for anyone who thinks that they might or fully expects to run this marathon faster than 4 hours. And I mean, if you we don't need to split hairs about it. I mean, if your last one was 4:15 or whatever, I give very explicit instructions as well as what I'm going to be expecting you to do if you opt into this plan. It's not a better plan. It's not going to take a person who reasonably would run a 6-hour marathon and turn them into a 4-hour marathoner. That's how people tend to make their choices, and that does not work out well. So I try to change the way people, I offer different questions and different decision matrix, hoping for better options that will get you a better experience, because we're more likely to be meeting your body where it's at and not where you want the finish time to be. So the way I'm treating everyone in Build right now, it never changes. No matter what you decide to do, how far you go, I will always be there being like, for what? It never ends. So, but that is what I think my job is as a coach. So this person's on the dedicated AF 10-week marathon ramp. That is the one in the middle, as I just described. Oh, sorry. And one final note: the reason that we call the plan for people who expect to run faster than 4 hours steady, the reason that one gets its name is because I expect you to need less hand holding from me, not more, because you are very familiar with the distance, you are very familiar with what to expect, and you know how to maintain a steady pace and even steady effort over at least 4 hours. Because if you don't, then we probably need to get a little more experience before jumping on that plan. If you do not think of yourself as steady AF, we can go to any of the other plans, and that's not to say that you wouldn't break 4 hours on any of the other plans. Again, it's just not how it works. It's a function of your fitness on day one of the ramp and not on the plan itself for anyone who is not trying to go to the Olympics in this cycle, broadly and generally speaking. So I'm on the dedicated AF 10-week marathon ramp. I'm choosing not to do the EAT. Don't worry about what that is. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. Your time may come later. So I won't have an A pace to use for the M2 workout. How would I plan that workout based off of my easy effort pace? Thank you. So if you don't have an A pace, generally speaking, when we talk about the A pace, that is your half, that's a proxy for your half marathon pace. And then your B pace is your proxy for your 10K pace. We know that your easy effort pace is at 140. We know that 2 minutes faster than that is your 10K pace. So split the difference. If you don't really know where to go, then 1 minute per mile faster, or maybe a tick faster than that, but not much faster for your A pace. So 1 minute per mile faster than your 140 pace is kind of where you want to be, but make sure that you're not getting all the way up to 2 minutes faster. And I know that can feel like a little bit like splitting hairs, but that's how much of a difference it makes over time. To make sure that we're not stressing out, but you really kind of want to get to find that effort and hang out there for M2 to work really well. So that's what I would do. Yay. So going to make a little change over here. Not keep the mic muted, and here we are. Going to jump into, these are some of the questions I have received about Build in my inbox. I'm going to address those, and then I'm going to hop into the comments. So number one, I have experiences with running. None have been good. Would Build be right for me? I hope so. If you heard anything in the webinar, if you listened to the webinar that we did on Thursday, and if you didn't, please do. I'm very proud of it. I had a really great time doing both of them. So if your experiences of running have not been positive, in the webinar, I kind of run down all those reasons why that would be. And Build really aims to do things differently here. If you've been listening up to this point in the broadcast, you hear that I'm not giving standard template, boilerplate answers to these questions. And I'm willing to sit down and do this every single week. I love doing this. There's nothing else I would rather do. But this is what I talk about by the guided DIY. I give you the frameworks to adapt and tailor the program to yourself. And then I come in to answer the more specific questions once a week. We have coaches doing it on a day-to-day basis too, but there are some things that you just need and want to hear from me, validation that only a coach can give. And I am here to do that whenever you need it. So if your experiences of running have been bad, odds are pretty good that I'm just guessing here, that you didn't have someone who is as invested in your ongoing development and happiness as I will be. because most coaches don't care about you being happy, and that's fair because they're here for performance. And performance is a very different way of looking at the same thing. I do not come from a performance background. I come strictly from a health background, again, which I went through in the webinar. And so this is what really makes my my view on this incredibly different. And in turn, I hope that in and of itself will make this experience incredibly different for you. Number 2, is it okay to not have goals? I mean, I'm interpreting your question, is it okay not to have performance goals? To which my reply is a resounding, yeah, of course. When we think about goals, what most of us think of when it comes to this sport is the same thing everybody else says, because there's nothing else out there. And that is the change that I'm hoping to make in the broader industry as we go. And why I feel like, hey, man, maybe this might be the right time. If ever there was a time, I am someone who can speak clearly to this is how you keep going without a race, because I did it for 15 years before I ran my first one. And I didn't have goals during that time. It was more like my vitamins. Did I take them? No, here. Let's do that then. I did not ask myself if I liked it, and no one cared if I liked it because of the way that I was brought into this activity, because I was being brought into this activity, but not into the running world. When I would enter the running world 12 years after that, everything would change, and it would change a lot in ways that I don't necessarily think were healthy, positive, or good for me. So I'm just trying to reestablish what I had back then without the trauma that sent me and my dad to the cardiologist office in the first place. So is it okay to not have goals? It's totally fine not to have performance-related goals. In fact, I think most performance-related goals that people have, like breaking 4 hours in the marathon, is something they made up in order to have a goal, because that's what everyone around them told them they were doing, and that's what matters. Even the smartest people tend to fall victim to the herd mentality when they don't really know what they're there to get. They look around and just kind of say, well, everybody else wants to do this, so I must be missing something, rather than really like probe that and question it. I'm going to do what everybody else around me is doing because I don't have the language to defend it. That's real. That's valid. I saw that at business school. I saw that everywhere I've ever been in my life. It's a thing. It's not about you. It's about sometimes it's just easier to hang on to a hat hook that ain't yours than try to like swing over to the next one. That's fine. I'm trying to create these more options for more people that will truly make more places for more types of thinking and more types of humans in the sport. Because I don't come from a performance background. Yeah, there's some performance related goals that I'd like to have later, but I got 4 kids under 8 and a twin, y'all. This ain't the time. I'm still recovering from the 4th one, who reminds me of that every day. She is in charge. So it's totally fine to not have goals. It's even better if you don't, because those artificial goals are also setting artificial expectations on you and on me, and that's not fair to either one of us. I'm here to celebrate your badassery, and I cannot do that if we're insisting on being unfair to ourselves at every possible turn. What's the number one thing you tell your runners they need to do if they want to see real improvement? Less. It's true. It's less. I've had people tell me that they want to focus on losing weight and performing and endurance and tenacity and all in the same cycle. And I'm kind of like, whoa, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get away from performance-driven cycles, which was prior to fitness protection was the only way to get a coach. People would watch The Biggest Loser and think, oh, it's totally safe to do couch to marathon. But number one, I've never met a person who is sitting on the couch before they decided to pick up a hobby like this. So, I mean, I don't even like the name of that program, and I hate the notion because it's just so ugly. Like, that shows you what they think of you. There's this whole idea in the fitness world that the reason you haven't done it yet is because you're lazy. And if you're talking to elites and professionals who have only ever worked, and they don't look at the training plan as an option, and they don't move things around, they follow the plan as written. It's not movable or fungible very much at all. And again, that's legit and fair. The rest of us don't have to live under that sort of pressure cooker. So I think there's a bit of a breakdown in understanding the order of importance and the priorities. So the assumption is, well, they couldn't stick to the plan, they're lazy, as opposed to maybe this plan isn't right for another person. And maybe the issue isn't laziness. Maybe the sort of person who would decide to take up running in their spare time or fitness of any sort is anything but lazy, and we're probably busy as opposed to eating donuts on the couch and then decide to stop that. Because let me tell you, I have never stopped that when I can get my hands on gluten-free donuts. I have celiac. I don't get off the couch because where else are you going to eat them, y'all? Not in my bed. That's nasty. Nasty. I am a sentient human being, and so are you, and so were you before you came here. So I tell you all that to tell you this.
Everything in this world is telling you that you don't have what you want, that you don't have, your basic needs are not met because you haven't worked hard enough. Because if you had worked hard enough, you'd have them. And that is not true. It's a lie. It's incorrect. You're probably already overdoing it and are being encouraged to do more. And I'm here to be like, the one thing you need to do is less. And once you wrap your brain around that and you look at all the unnecessary stress that is not actually helping you achieve, do, or produce in other areas of your life, you'll see how useless stress actually is and start rejecting it the way that I do. Which is not to say every person needs to be me, but rather more often than not, when you say I'm willing to do more, I'm going to say you don't need to. But human body doesn't work that way. Nothing works that way. And anyone who tells you otherwise is just trying to bully you into doing something that they don't want to do, if this is happening at work, or they're trying to sell you something you don't need, convincing you that you lack something that does not exist, like willpower, mental strength. I see you. I know how much mental strength it takes for you to get through each day. And I'm never going to tell you you need more. I'm going to meet you where you're at. I'm going to lighten your load. We're going to turn this into self-care, and the sort of self-care that you reach for anytime you have a little bit of spare time, as opposed to the thing you feel like you should do because you have a little bit of free time and you've already eaten donuts on the couch today, so you have to make up for it. That's not how it works. That makes sense? So listen to one of your podcasts. I don't know what diet culture is. I've never heard of hustle culture, but you're not going to tell me that I need to love my body or some inane shit, are you? I'm probably going to say a lot of inane shit. I do that. You're probably going to think a lot of it's inane, and that's okay too. I'm not going to tell you that you need to do anything, much less love your body. 42, I'm 40, I'll be 42 in a couple months. Assuming you're the same age as I am, 42 years of conditioning isn't going to fall away overnight. That's what diet culture is. Every message in society, from the fitness industry to the PE course that you had to take when you're in elementary school, to any coach who's ever said, hey, just try harder, with a total disregard for how hard you're actually working in that moment, maybe not physically, but emotionally, to stay there doing that thing in that moment, thoroughly humiliated. That is diet culture. It's anything that tells you that you'd be better at this or more successful or happier, or he would have called you back if you were 5 pounds lighter. That's diet culture, and we all believe it on some level. And it's a sickness that we pass on to our kids. Same as hustle culture. If you're here because you have free time and you're going to try to fill that free time, not just with a hobby, but with a hobby that to which you can attach really big goals that sound really nice, and then find yourself following other people, chasing someone else's dream in numbers that mean nothing, that end up breaking your body. That's hustle culture, where you feel like what I'm doing and what I want isn't enough. I want more. And that's not for the sake of better, but it's I should. It's shaming to live in the should, and we don't like shaming words around here. So I'm not going to tell you that you need to do anything, because I know that loving your body, depending on where you are, and on any given day, on any given minute, might be impossible for a whole lot of people. I hated my body for the 2 years that I was living the spoonie life, totally convalescent after the birth of my 4th baby. I just had to have her. She's amazing, and she's a pain in the butt, but she's wonderful. But that my body, which has functioned so beautifully for the majority of my life, failed me for 2 years. And I had to wrap my brain around, I don't like where I'm at, and I don't like my body right now. And I don't know if I'm ever going to get back to what I had before. Did a lot of work. I've been in therapy for 20 years, but the therapy I did during those 2 was some of the most meaningful work I've ever done. I don't expect everyone to go there, because I refer to it as ugly work for a reason. It is hard, and it is ugly to look inside yourself and start unpacking the beliefs that you have about yourself and your body, and the limitations that have been placed on you from day one, the BS that you've bought into your whole life. It is really hard to cast that aside. I don't expect that to happen overnight. I don't expect it to happen in our first month or our first training cycle together. But what I do hope for is a semblance of neutrality, where you say, I just don't want to do that, as opposed to, I know I really should, because I need to, make up for the fact, treating your body like a fraction, and the things that you've done in the past are sins that need to be atoned for or accounted for, or somehow written, I'm going to do this over here and then this over here and make it neutral. That's not what neutrality is. Neutrality is when you wake up and you just don't think about, you put on a pair of pants and they don't fit good, and instead of being mad at yourself about it, you reach for the ones that do. That's why I don't wear hard pants, y'all. I don't want that pressure. I have not worn hard pants. Some of my pants are still maternity pants, and I love them, and I'm never going back. You do you. That's what I choose. I can feel bad about not fitting into pants for no good reason, or I can pick the comfy pants. I pick the comfy pants every single day. And my hope is that you will too, free of shame or judgment, and to celebrate instead of like, what do pants need to do? Fit. What do they need to do? Get me through the day and cover my privates. And if your pants fit that, who cares if they are the hardest, most uncomfortable things and still fit your body or not? Worry. I'm going to ask people to put pressure where it needs to be, and it really doesn't need to be that many places. Don't make anything harder than it has to. And if that sounds inane to you, probably best to run away right now. There are plenty of people out there that are willing to take your money and tell you that you're fat and ugly and lazy, and if you worked harder, you'd have the things that you want. I'm not that person, and I'm never going to be. I'm going to give you all the tools that you need or that you could possibly use to do this on your own, because I believe this, and this might be the most inane thing I say to you today. If I do my job correctly, you won't need me very long. But if I do my job well, you'll never leave my side. And that's what I'm going for here. So you lost me at intuitive eating. Fair enough. You probably heard that in a podcast. I know I did mention that in the webinar. I prefer to think of it. Someone suggested this. Dahlia Kinsey, brilliant as she is, said this the other day in the most recent Lighten Up podcast. Because in Lighten Up, we talk about the confluence of diet culture and hustle culture and how that impacts not just our mental health, but also our choices around fitness and nutrition. People eating what they think they need to eat, thinking they need to eat the good foods, versus just making a choice and not judging every single thing they do. So intuitive eating is a very specific brand and a set of rules. Attuned eating is how we like to think of it now. And that's acknowledging the demands that we're putting on our bodies now that we're taking up a new hobby that requires more physical activity than before, meaning we're building muscle, meaning we're building the cardiovascular system. Let's be cognizant of the protein that we're putting in there. And that's about it. The rest of it, like if you're hungry, eat. Seriously, if you're hungry before you go to bed, that's a good thing. You know what that signals? Metabolic change, which is a byproduct of what we're doing here. It's not something to feel bad about or a red flag that you need to shut down. It's more like, yay, it's all working. And there's a physical proof. It's something to celebrate. Everything your body says and does is something to celebrate. And that was something I didn't truly get before. And that's the gift I want to give everyone here. But if intuitive eating turns you off, I know it turns off a lot of the super fans, the people I brought with me from previous jobs, people who have been by my side since day one, the ones who are comfortable saying, hey, I love you, but I don't like this. They have made it very clear that they don't like the concept of intuitive eating. They like the principles, but they can't get away from the phrase. And that is valid. So we're finding other ways to articulate, explain, and share the same gifts that these systems have brought. So if I lost you because of that, I hate to hear that, and I'm sorry. I hope something I said now might have turned that around, and that we can, because I really do think that there might be something here for you. If you're even aware of intuitive eating and what that could be, to have an opinion about it, then that's saying, yeah, I think that we're going to speak to it in a way that might speak to you. You sound like you're trying to convince us to settle for not getting faster because you don't know how to get us there. Why should I have to change my goals because you aren't a good coach? Did you ever think about that? Think about it every day, actually. I think about being the best coach I possibly can be. I think about making sure that the coaching cues that I give you are accurate and get you where you want to go and where you think you need to be and what your best next step actually is before you've even thought to take it. I think 3 steps ahead of you. I'm not playing checkers. This is 3-dimensional chess, and the stakes couldn't be higher because anyone who's come here is probably not doing this for the first time ever. I might be another person that's lured them in with the promise of a safe space to be who they are, and I will not be yet another person to break that promise, spouting the same inane nonsense that they've heard elsewhere. So I don't think anyone should have to change their goals, but I am going to challenge you to look in and say, why does that goal exist? Why does that timeline exist? Why does this matter? What does this mean? Why is this meaningful to you? I'm going to ask you to articulate it. I'm not going to say I can't or won't get you there. And I do know how to get people faster. And I'm an absolutely fantastic coach. I'm a terrific coach. I'm one of the best coaches for hobby joggers you'll ever find for recreational runners, because I know how to keep things balanced and the priorities where they need to be. And I'm going to celebrate you for being here rather than judge you for the stuff that you don't do. I'm not going to fall into the same patterns and traps that exist everywhere else. I exist to do something a little bit differently. So I can get you all kinds of places. The path forward is just not going to look like what you thought it looked like, because I come from a unique perspective and a different background. And I'm still doing this 35 years in. You're not going to find that from very many people under the age of 65 that have had one habit for 35 years when they're not and didn't go to the Olympics. I'm not the best of the world at it. I don't need to be, never did. So I think I'm a pretty great coach. I can get you here without the trauma that brought me here and kept me here. And that, again, is my gift. I'm not trying to compete with the coachy coaches or the super sciencey coaches or the coaches. If you Google like run coach and their name comes up, if they speak to you in a way that I don't, go with God. But it's totally possible to perform after you've nailed the fundamentals. And that is what this industry gets wrong. We assume that you haven't nailed the fundamentals because you were too lazy to do it, because you were on the couch eating donuts. We judge you. And we try to keep you insecure and scared and here begging for our approval, because that's how we keep taking your money. And in the minute you're empowered, you walk away. It's the same trap that keeps overachievers in the pipeline trying to get into the top universities, parents spending every dime they have trying to make sure the kids have the best options without evaluating what that's going to look like later. That very few people are going to actually, those colleges don't change the trajectory of their life the way it did mine. I'm not going to be pushing my kids to go do that. I went and did this, they wouldn't have to. I tell you all that to tell you this. Being a good parent means a very specific set of things that I have sat back and said why, and I've questioned, and I've done that in the running world too. That just because I'm saying things that you've not heard before doesn't mean I'm a crappy coach. And I'm not going to defend that on a day-to-day basis. I'm a terrific coach because I'm a person who you've never heard of, yet you're here, and who's talking and you're listening. And the real question is, and here's something I learned in grad school, if you haven't taken the time to think out the question that you're asking, then the answer isn't going to get you anywhere. So be sure you're asking the right questions. When I look at this, if I was your thesis advisor, I would rewrite it and say, if you're really happy with what you're doing, if what you're doing is generally working for you, if you're closer to your goals than you were a year ago, then why did you listen to the webinar? 1, and why would you send me this note? Number 2. And if that pisses you off, I get it, but that's my challenge to you. If everything's working, great, keep going. But if it was, I don't think you would have clicked on the advertisement that brought you here. Think about that. Go with that. I'm never going to judge you. And when we speak, I'm going to pretend I don't recognize your name. Okay, now, with all of that asked and answered, I'm going to move into the comments right over here. Okay, Robin wants to know, does the build program have a nutrition component? Not specifically baked in. We are going to be releasing a nutrition series of programs called the Plan B. Well, Plan B, basically. That's because that's what I call it. Plan A is where you sit down and you make this really nice, well thought out dinner, but I have not been there in about 6 years. And I think a lot of people haven't been either, especially now with all this going on. So Plan B is like, good enough. It's the best alternative to preparing a meal from scratch and what that was on the meal plan that I made when I had time to make it that didn't account for the cooking I don't actually have time to do. So everything looks good on paper, including like some of my exes and, communism. And I mean, you name it. There are all kinds of things that look real great on paper, including maybe some people that you work with or hired and you thought they were going to be terrific. And then it's like, oh my God. So meals can tend to go by the wayside the same way. The Plan B meal plan makes it really, really easy to turn the page and make it as robotic and mindless as possible, which in turn is what makes it stress-free, because more stress doesn't get you anywhere. So the nutrition component will be sold through the company later if you're interested in that. But no, we don't have a specific nutrition component to it because we're not going to tell you what to do. What we do offer and what we will be, pushing on every single podcast and continually going forward. We have a chief nutrition officer. Dahlia Kinsey is also known as the school nutrition dietitian down in Georgia. She's amazing. She has a podcast about it. And her whole MO is about making food widely accessible and shame-free. And we conform very much to the health at every size idea of nutrition and health, holistic with the W, not like with the H, meaning like outside of the health system, but rather all of the mind, all of the body, which is not going to happen. Stress doesn't make you healthier. Quite the opposite, as in matter of fact. So we will have Dahlia coming onto the podcast answering questions once in a while. If you want to get to know her better, hop into the Facebook quarantine. We set up a free support group for people just going through this. We called it 8 weeks of wonder because it was supposed to be 8 weeks when we started, but now we're looking and being like, oh, this could go on longer than 8 weeks. This might be a whole lot longer than 8 weeks, but that's neither here nor there. Either the support in there is free, and Dahlia live streams on Tuesdays. We call it the Quarantine Kitchen, very tongue in cheek. She also appears on our podcast. We have a monthly segment on the Running Life podcast, which you can subscribe to on Apple Podcasts, Castbox, or your favorite podcast player. And that series is called Lighten Up, where a therapist, a Gottman method, a trauma-informed therapist, Jume all about it, and Dahlia Kinsey, the school nutrition dietitian, and I sit down. We call them the big guns. We sit down to tackle the big topics of how diet culture and nutrition, how diet culture impacts not just our mental health, but also the choices that we make in relation to fitness and nutrition. The most recent episode is about vacation eating, because the questions that we were getting were along the lines of, hey, coach, I've been eating like I'm on vacation, and now that we realize this is going to drag out longer, I don't know what to do. Help me out. And we answered that question really thoroughly, and what I thought was one of the better podcasts we've ever done. It was an hour and 45 minutes long. It took me 3 tries to sit down and listen to all of it. But my God, when I did, I was just like, wow, we're doing good stuff here. I'm very, very proud of that episode, and I encourage you to listen to it, because the nutrition component, everything here is that. I'm not going to tell you what to feel or how to deal, but I am going to tell you when the stress that you are placing on yourself, the rules by which you are forcing yourself to live, when the work that you're doing is no longer working for you, including nutrition. Actually, I'm going to go back to that one more thing to say. When it comes to nutrition as well as training, and the reason I feel like all this goes together, I call it tightrope thinking. People act as though they're on a tightrope, and it's this very narrow thing. And if you got big old wide feet like mine, then trying to stay on the tightrope is a terrifying thing. You don't want to deviate. You want to get it exactly right. We have a lot of perfectionists in here, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like a lot of the nutrition plans I see. Our approach is going to be very, very different. Everything that I do, from the way that I advise people to eat, to the way I advise people to strategize for a multi-hour event like a marathon, instead of having like, here's what you do, stick to the script, I'm like, okay, we're on a road. And in a road, all you have to do, don't cross this line, don't cross this line. Anywhere in the middle, yay, you're good. So everything that we do is more like a highway, which is why I use a lot of car analogies. I mean, that, and because cars are amazing, and the ballad Ricky Bobby is everything you need to know about life. I believe that it's true. I actually go to coachandlove.com/blog and search for Talladega. And there are a couple of lessons that I've taught in the past on what runners need to take away from Ricky Bobby. They're worth reading. And you know what? It's a real stupid movie, so it's a great thing to watch right now. I'm actually a NASCAR girl, and I loved how much they got right there, because a lot of it emphasizes what I say exists, the destructive performance culture of win at all costs. All that matters is winning, because NASCAR is one of the few sports where the way the point system works, that even if you win, you lose. And Ricky can't stop himself from winning, even though like everybody knows. Now, if you don't know NASCAR, you might not get it, but it's not terribly subtle in the movie either. Ricky, when you go out there, you need to not win because team points, blah, blah, blah. And all he hears is like math, and he goes out there and he wins, and he wasn't supposed to. It actually hurts the team, and they lose a lot of money. So tell you this, walking that tightrope doesn't work very well. I'm going to advise you to stay in the middle of the road and get used to lots of car analogies. Most people reading this have driven a car at some point, so they won't be so as esoteric as the NASCAR point system, but a lot of them hopefully will make some sense. or ring true. So Aaron's question, it's my question. I want to move to zero drop because I want the ultra toe box because my shoes squish my toes. That's a great reason right there. And they also have a narrower heel cup, which they are less likely to slide around on your foot. And ultras, a lot of people love them. When they first came out, I liked them, just not for running because they didn't have anything in the arches. And I need a little something, not a stability shoe, but most neutral shoes have some sort of an arch support. And I mean, it's not even noticeable if you pull the lining out, but there's just something that your arch will rest against. And that little something is really necessary. Ultras might have those now. They did not the last time I put the shoe on 5 years ago. So I would say, yeah, absolutely. Ultras are a great shoe. I can't say enough good things about the company and about the products. Absolutely go try them on and see if it works. But you might find as well that it's a fairly slow adaptation curve. And yeah, they do pretty much only have zero drop. That and the wide toe box, it was part of their whole shtick. But they're also, no shoe will ever fit your foot better because women, broadly and generally speaking, do have narrower heel cups. And it's the only shoe I've ever felt and put on my foot where the heel did not slide around without me having to tie the shoe so tightly. I thought I was going to be cutting off my circulation and getting numb toes throughout the run. Here's what Susan has to say about it. She doesn't like the zero drop. And Susan will tell you what she thinks. That's why I love her. Right, Susan? Yay. We try those out. Topo. Yeah, you know what? Cade, one of our sponsored runners, he runs in Topo. You can ask him as well, or ask him to tell you what he did to win the free Topos that he did several years ago. That's a fun story too. Cade is super friendly and fun to talk to. He's one of my favorite people. Don't ever hesitate to reach out. Aaron, yay for good decisions. You just joined Build and you're happy to be training my style kid. Yay, I miss you and I'm so glad to have you back. Last fall, I had plantar fasciitis, which is okay now. I haven't been running and I'm starting with walking. Very smart. Anything I should do beyond your strength plan and rolling my foot with a lacrosse ball to prevent it from acting up again? I had a long time ago a plantar fasciitis video that we are in the process of remaking. I will go ahead and get that out sooner because you're not the first person to ask for it. I will go ahead and get that out sooner. It won't be as professional or as pretty as it was before, but now that we have a very kind person who, as a matter of fact, is in this chain and is able to edit video, I will speak with her and see how quickly we can get that out. But there are 3 moves. The first is the bone saw, which is what we do to foam roll your shins. And by the way, whatever you're thinking, if you haven't done my foam rolling script before, what you're thinking is not accurate. You ain't rolled your shins until you do them the way that I ask you to. It's going to be terrible, but you'll get used to it and it's going to be worth it. The second has to do with loosening up the tendons at the main attachment point in your foot in front of your heel. And I'll show you guys how to do that. And the third will be how we break up the junk around the soleus with around the soleus in your heel cords. And we'll demonstrate all 3 in the video. But work that stuff in slowly because, like I said, it isn't very comfortable at all. But this is, no one gets hurt from doing. I mean, doing my routine the first couple times hurts for sure. No one gets injured from doing my foam rolling routine. They get injured from not doing it ever. Can you greet my friend who is watching you from Italy? Yay! Hello, Italy. Oh my gosh. I am praying for you guys. We are holding you guys in your hearts. And I tell you what, you guys have no idea how much you get right in Denver right now. And I think this is happening all over the country. People are going out and howling at 8 p.m. And I don't know why we can't sing like Italy. So please, tonight at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. or whatever time it is that you guys go outside and sing in solidarity to remind each other that there's still a world worth coming back to when all this ends. When you do that, think of us having to explain to our children yet again not to be scared of the howling outside, that is not. And I don't know who thought of that, but y'all not. That's selfish. That's more selfish than not wearing a mask. Scares my kids to death every night. Why can't we sing like Italy? I don't know. It'd be real nice. Like, even if it was We Are the World. I hate that song. It's cheesy. And I had to hear it way too much in the 80s. I would sing the bejesus out of that song to not hear the howl. So, hi, Italy. Thank you for not howling. You tried to show us the way, and we missed it every time. May you guys come out of this stronger and having a little bit more sleep than what we've had. Tuned eating. I'm glad you like that too. Yeah, we're going to be diving into it. Now, we can't make everything free. We're going to the same way. If you watch the webinar, y'all, I told you what I did and what the cardiologist had me doing and how I ran for like neon 12 years before I entered the running world after I left home, went to college. So the way that we're going to, back up. I gave you everything you needed to run on your own and a great run plan in that webinar. And I even talked it through. You don't need me. You could just do this. But here's why I know you won't. And here's where Build is going to help keep you going. This is everything you need to get started. Build has everything you need to keep going. You have everything you need right now to do this nutritionally. Plan B is going to make sure that it is just as easy. It's like a muscle you can flex on a day when you're just too tired to lift. It's just that simple. So we're going to be giving it in all that we do. We're going to be giving away a lot of free nutrition advice, frameworks for making decisions, reframing the way you look, not just at what you do, but what you think is the right thing, finger quotes, right thing to do. We're going to be challenging that every step of the way. And we're going to be talking through the things that I do. But I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't mind telling you what I do because I'm not giving you specific nutrition advice that is geared towards anything in particular. Like this for entertainment purposes only. Whee! And I like to think of myself as entertaining. There you go. So tell you this nutrition, there will be a paid aspect to nutrition, and there will be an unpaid aspect that runs through everything that we do, create, produce, and put out there for you, whether or not you're a subscriber. But as usual, you can get it for free, but it'll just be another thing that you're not using, another thing that you download from the internet, printed out, but never executed. And that's the power of the plan, the community, and the coach. It's not about the pressure to do. It's about a starting cue to get going every single day. I wish Netflix had stopping cues because I've never watched, I'm going to admit this again, I had never seen Die Hard. I had never seen Lethal Weapon. Pretty much anything that you can name. The few movies that I have seen from the 80s were the times that my mom and I would sneak out to see a movie because we weren't allowed to watch pretty much anything over, anything. To be honest, anything. Very religious, very, very conservative small town I grew up in, and it was a big deal to leave the city to go to where the cinemas were. So there's a whole bunch of pop culture that I have consumed, and I'm excited to talk about because I like to show everybody how I'm in the real world now. I'm not 30 years behind. It's amazing. I'm showing off. But also there's just a whole bunch that I missed. And now I'm like, oh, Lethal Weapon was hilarious. That was cheesy and terrible, but amazing. Is there a second? There's 4. So we've watched all 4, and now we've watched all the Die Hards, and we're trying to figure out what to do next. And I'm chasing that neon rainbow, living this Hollywood dream through my television. And there are starting cues that will suggest things, but nothing telling me to stop except, the reminder that no matter what I do, HRH Baby Violet's going to be breakfast at 5:30, no matter how late. She does not care how late we stay up. She's going to remind us that we are failing yet again to meet expectations with no negotiation. So that seems like it's all the comments. Anything else you want to throw in there? Feel free. Now is the time. All righty then. Yeah, I'm not thrilled with the person who told me that Ace Ventura Pet Detective would be great to watch with the children. Wear the mask. I'm going to be hearing that forever. Whew. But I will give you better advice than what's been given to me regarding movies that are appropriate for children. Y'all, we had different childhoods, y'all. You are coached. You are loved. And if you are not having to hear a howl out your window tonight or explain to children that everything is actually fine and people are doing that to feel good, and why are they howling instead of singing? I don't know. If you're not having to have this conversation yet again, I promise you are winning at life. If everyone need to rebuild, thank you for being here. I'm going to hop over and go live in a few minutes over there. If you have any questions that you didn't want to ask here, that's a safe space to do it in. Welcome to the program. We cannot wait for you to get started. Everybody else, see you next week.